to Rise and Shine Manitoba. Had to take a quick commercial break there, but we're ready to go now. Harry Siemens joining us now on the Farm Report. Well, joining me on the Farm Report, brought to you by Wolf Enterprises on this Wednesday morning. Harry joining us from his home virtually this wonderful Wednesday morning here in October 2021. Harry, October almost coming to an end. Halloween this Sunday. Seems like time just keeps ticking and ticking along. How have things been with you in the past week?
Well, just wanted to say that I am from Winkler, Manitoba. There's two kinds of people in this world: those that live here and those that would like to live here. That's my first point this morning. Secondly, I have the privilege of having my birthday on Halloween, and I'm going to be 75 years old this Sunday. And I'm going to be on with Clay Young at CGOB Radio, and we're going to be talking agriculture and a bit about birthdays and Halloween. But you know what? It's good. I'm still continuing to recover from my COVID that I've had since, don't have it now, but I'm recovering from it. But agriculture, once there's frost on the pumpkin, once we see frost on the windshields and on the roofs, then farmers need to just refocus a little bit about what they're doing as far as field preparation is concerned, what they're doing with crop protection products and so forth. So right now we're heading towards the end of October, and I believe that most of the field work is probably done. I mean, there was an extension as far as we talked about last week about manure application till November the 22nd. So again, it'll all depend on what the weather is like. And it's you're still seeing corn coming off and some sunflowers, but I believe, for all intents and purposes, the crop in Manitoba, whatever crop there was, is in the bin. And that's a good thing, and now the farmers have to continue to watch and look forward to making sure that crop, it's such a huge value. Just to give you an example, I have a trucker friend, and I'm not going to name him because he showed me an invoice of a truckload of flax that he picked up in Saskatchewan, and it's going to a pet food manufacturing plant in Indiana. But he showed me the invoice, and that flax was like $1,667 a ton. And that's U.S. funds. So in Canadian funds, that's well over $2,000 a ton. And I remember when flax was like $400 and $500 a ton. So that's the kind of value that farmers have in the bin. And that particular load, 23 tons, I think the dollar value of it was $37,000 in U.S. funds. So that's almost $50,000, one truckload of flax. And so, that's just putting into perspective. But now, on the other, put the shoe on the other foot. My brother Jack continues to farm, and he's going to be 84 in November, and he told me about how he had priced out fertilizer. And there was a time when fertilizer costs were like $25 and $30, maybe $40 an acre. He priced out fertilizer at $174 an acre. That's just fertilizer. That's just one input crop. It doesn't include any work, doesn't include any seed or anything else. So that's $174 an acre. So when we see the high prices on one side, they have to be that high in order for the farmers to make any kind of return on their investment. And the other thing that he told me about that one was, and that's if he paid it by November 1st. He forward priced that particular fertilizer he bought. And he said it had already gone up from when he pegged in his price. But he's got to pay for the fertilizer November the 1st. And that fertilizer doesn't go into the ground until May 2020. So he's putting out the cash. And that doesn't even mean that there'll be a return, because we're still in a drought cycle, even though we had lots and lots of rain. So, hey, that's a pretty long introduction, Graeme, but I'll give you a chance to take a breath. I'll take a breath. You ask a question.
Yeah, sounds good. Crazy that the price of fertilizer that high.
Yeah.
That's nuts. But we were talking about the federal government last weekend or last week on the show, and just talking about them pulling out on fertilizer use for the in terms of the environment. That's what that had to do with. Give us updates on, or an update on if we've seen any developments in the story there. Yeah, give us an update on that.
Well, not so much a specific update, but an indication of what I think is going to be coming. Number one, Agriculture Minister Beebo was reinstated as the Agriculture Minister for Canada. She's been the Agriculture Minister since I think since Trudeau became the Prime Minister. So Agriculture Minister Beebo, that's one familiar cabinet minister. But in Western Canada right now, especially in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, we have no cabinet ministers. But he put a fella in charge of the climate control and environment that is, in my opinion, way out on the left field. I mean, he's so far left that maybe he thinks he's right. But with that indication of that announcement, that simply means that when the federal government announced a 30% reduction in fertilizer emissions, I simply feel very strongly that's exactly what they mean. And as we talked before, that's going to cost farmers an awful lot of money. So anyway, that's all I can say about that. We have the same ag minister that we had before when Trudeau announced the new cabinet, and we've got some other shifts. Jim Carr was our minister without portfolio, I believe, but he was the representative for Western Canada. Jim Carr is no longer a minister either. So Winnipeg, Manitoba does not have a cabinet minister in the federal cabinet.
There was something that we didn't talk about last week. You told me before air you were in the middle of doing a news release. Now, I'm not sure if you can remember quite what I'm talking about, but what type of news release were you talking about last weekend or last week, and the news release you were currently in the making of doing last week? Just talk about that a bit.
Oh man, you know what? There's so many things, I'm not sure which one. We did talk about a story that I put out that had to do with farmers beware of what kind of feed they're buying.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the one thing, and I just again I write for various. I just saw that published in the Ontario Farmer, which is the big farm publication in Ontario, and so that again it's very significant that farmers are aware of what and it's everybody should be aware. I mean, how many times don't we see in Winkler, Morden, Altona, where the police, their headline stories are another fraud, another social media fraud, another internet fraud, or whatever it may be. So we've got to be careful what it is we're buying, because you have no idea where and when things aren't as they appear. So that was the other thing that I was talking about, and yesterday. We talked about the hog industry a week ago, and yesterday the Manitoba Pork Council, which is representative of all the hog producers in Manitoba. It's a producer-run organization. It's called the Manitoba Pork Council. The chair is Rick Preget, who's from Notre Dame, and the general manager is Cam Dahl, and both of them are new. There's a new chairman and a new general manager, executive director. And so they had their annual producer meeting, which is always held in fall. Initially, we thought we would go to Niverville for that meeting, and then they changed it because everybody who came there needed to be vaccinated, and they had very few registered. So they went back to a Zoom meeting. So yesterday afternoon, it was a Zoom producer meeting with hog producers in Manitoba. And again, they talked about the value of the hog industry. They talked about their 5-year plan as to how they need to get the hog producers into a position where they can actually make return on investment. We've seen the hog industry for 50 years, and I've covered it for 50 years, and there's been a move back on return on investment, and so we need to see some things there. And the other thing that was of significance yesterday is the fact that they want to deal with local politicians, the RM councils and so forth, and convince them and show them that hog production is a benefit. It's safe. It's a benefit not only for the jobs, the cash flow, but also the manure that we can spread on lands. It's awesome fertilizer. So the hog industry in Canada is worth $25 billion. That's billion with a B, dollars, right across Canada. And that's nothing to sneeze about. And so we want to make sure that we and the hog industry is very responsive. They're responsible from the fact that they're not going to put up hog barns where there are already too many hog barns, maybe. So they go into areas where there's a lot less and more open spaces, and where farmers can actually use the hog manure and put it on their fields. If you're talking about this one particular anhydrous ammonia being $174, like I said about my brother, can you imagine what that hog manure as a fertilizer nutrient is worth? And that's totally natural. And so it's a real challenge. In fact, in Iowa, there they raise hogs, not so much for the hogs, but they raise hogs for the fertilizer benefit. And so they'll put up hog barns, and they'll make sure the hogs go to market. They're all looked after well, but that's almost a side product. It's the fertilizer from those hogs that they want to put onto their fields.
Yeah, $25 billion what the industry is worth. Just that's some big money right there, Harry. I gotta say, that's a big number. Was not quite expecting that figure to be said when you talked about just the value of it. But talking about switching months, of course, October almost over, going into November, we'll most likely see some snow falling soon here. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before, but how do farmers handle that change from just seeing those leaves falling and all the way to just us seeing snow on the ground? How they handle just adjusting to that?
Well, it's as I said earlier, the most important thing is to get the field work done. And so I asked my brother. He farms together with his son about 1,500 acres. I said, "What about your fall work?" Well, he says, "We did 300 acres out of 1,500, and the rest we're just going to leave in zero till." So they didn't till that. They didn't move that soil at all. From when the combine came, it took off the crop. That particular stubble field stands just like that until next spring, when they take the air seeder and they put the seed into that stubble. And so they do two things. They trap the moisture. And this year, because of some of the crops not being what they haven't used all the fertilizer. So they didn't want to disturb the soil, because there's still a significant amount of fertilizer from what they applied this year available for next year. So how do they handle it? Basically, sometimes they're happy to put the machinery back into the shed, and from there, they start to look at what's going on in the fall. Sometimes it's meetings, sometimes it's different things, but sometimes it's just simply taking a break and catching their breath, and because of the change in scenery.
Yeah, always nice for to catch your breath. Take a chill a bit and kind of relax, which is nice that farmers will be able to do that once this season changes, once we get that snowfall. But we'll end off with this, Harry. Siemens says, Harry Siemens, farming tip of the week for farmers.
The farming tip of the week is simply and I was going to use it as part of my last comment. Soil moisture conservation is a really important part of farming. And so my tip today is, farmers, do what you can, do as little as you can with soil movement, but at the same time, we need that snow cover. And when you leave that stubble out there, you're actually able to catch the snow, because we're still in a mini drought situation. We need moisture. So my tip of the week is simply leave that soil, and I don't need to tell farmers that, but this is for the benefit of other viewers as well, is that, leave that soil intact, catch the moisture, reserve the moisture, and get at it again next spring.
Well, as always, some great words on Siemens Says. Harry Siemens, farming tip of the week, and just great catching up with you this week, Harry. Great to have you on.